Welcome back to a brand new year of Switch to Linux. And one thing that has not changed in the new year is Windows is still up to its nonsense. This article came out a couple weeks ago, a little bit before Christmas, and so we decided to hold it on until after the new year. But we are going to be talking about recalling your credit card numbers and other sensitive data. So we'll go ahead and talk about this today. Thanks for checking out this video by Switch to Linux, where we talk about Linux, free and open source software, and reasons why you might want to change, including privacy and things like that. That is why we run Windows Wednesdays. No, we're not a Windows channel. We like to highlight some of the weird shenanigan things that Windows is doing to everyday users that some may not even understand. In fact, we even have a thread here from Reddit where people are asking, wait, is Windows doing this? We're going to go ahead and talk about that and clarify that as well. If you like this type of content, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. Leave us a like and a comment down below. You can also have a look at the website, switchedtolinux.com/support, if you want to help support the channel. Of course, we are talking about the controversial recall, and we have a note today from Tom's Hardware done from just a couple days before Christmas, I'd say about a week or so before Christmas, indicating that in the current version in the preview builds, recall is able to recall sensitive data that it's not supposed to be. Now, Microsoft did respond and give us some information back, so we'll go ahead and chat about that. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and summarize recall. If you are new to this concept, you just clicked on this video and you're like, oh, what's going on with my credit card numbers? Well, what has happened here is Windows has been experimenting and they wanted to just simply roll this out in September without even any testing. But some people were able to get the software package called Recall running on unsupported PCs. It was supposed to roll out with the Snapdragon Copilot Plus PCs using the NPU processing units for AI processing on a local machine. The idea behind the software package is to take a screenshot of everything on your computer every approximately 5 or so seconds, and then utilize OCR, optical character reading, and read this into a database so that you could then do keyword searches on what might be on your screen. The idea here was that you could create a 3-month archive, searchable archive of everything that you did. Obviously, back in June when this was first announced, a lot of people had some serious issues with this. And then as people started looking into it, it was not secured in any way. It was a total, absolute nightmare for both privacy and security concerns. And after a lot of people piled onto it, Microsoft pulled it from the development previews for a few months. It brought it back, making it opt-in instead of opt-out, although we will note it is installed with a simple software toggle button to turn it off, which in and of itself is questionable because Microsoft has been known to toggle those switches during updates at time to time. They also secured everything with the Windows Hello system, which means that even anybody else on the computer, other users on the computer, cannot access any of that data without your specific Windows Hello, which is designed to be biometric, but you still can use a 4-digit PIN. Why in the world they're telling me that a 4-digit PIN is more secure than a complicated password is beyond me. Of course, because they want everybody to use your biometrics, which I'm sorry, I'm not really willing to do. All of that being said, they did bring it back and it has finally hit the developer previews at the end of November. And of course, it had the very common problem inflicting most Windows pieces of software. So the first major notice that people took is, hey, I call this a feature, not a bug, but it wasn't taking screenshots. Well, that's a good problem to have for a system like this. But in all reality, some people want this type of tool where you can do screenshots and search it. I don't know why. Novelty factor. Is it really that useful? I don't know. But when they first saw this in late November, there was an issue with it not working. Of course, the good old Windows age-old function was to turn it off and turn it on again. Yes, there was a bug that Microsoft acknowledged that if the system was not taking screenshots after 5 minutes or so, just reboot the system. If at any point in time the system stops taking screenshots, also reboot the system. I don't know if this has been fully fixed in the build. I haven't seen anything else about this. But what we're getting on now is this recall feature. And so some Reddit users post this one. Microsoft Recall is capturing screenshots of sensitive information like credit cards and social security numbers. This is a privacy nightmare, is very real and perfectly avoidable if you disable the feature for good. This is from TechSpot, although the breaking article is from Tom's Hardware, which we are going to look at this article. But what I wanted to highlight in the Reddit post is even people running Windows oftentimes are unaware of what the system is doing. So this person just summarizes it. And of course, Microsoft has been known, as this person illustrates, they have a history of renaming features and turning them back on after users explicitly turn them off in the settings menu. There were also reports of turning telemetry back on without renaming, and many more people, of course, complaining about that. So Windows itself is pushing a lot of things on people. Now, let me go ahead and alleviate one brief fear you might have. This is designed to run on Copilot Plus PCs, which requires an NPU processor. These are, to my knowledge, they are all ARM computers with an NPU processor. They are branded as Copilot Plus PCs. If you do not have one of those specific pieces of hardware, likely you do not have this software package. Although I will note other people have gotten the software to work on PCs that did not have the NPU units and were not otherwise Copilot Plus PCs. So what does this mean? Does it mean Windows might cram it on anyway? I don't know. According to the documentation, no, it will not be running. However, a recent update, I think it was the 24H2, pushed some back-end service called Recall Enabled, which is not exactly this package. I personally think it's just a back-end connector, like a listening channel or something, is what my guess is on that. But this is a common problem for Windows. And so this guy, Meta Knowing, says Microsoft recalled Recall because of privacy outrage. It promised to improve its AI-based Windows surveillance feature before release, providing privacy safeguards and more secure experience. But now that it is here, this new feature takes screenshots of the desktop every few seconds using on-device large language model to scan, store, and process information. This is where they're referencing the Tom's Hardware guide, and it says that the improved feature Tom's Hardware tested the improved recall feature and recommended that every Windows 11 should disable the feature immediately. This is because Tom's Hardware was able to have recall selecting very sensitive data. And we'll go ahead and talk about what that was in a moment. So this guy says it sounds like the recent pullet hasn't really been addressed. In reality, it was. The biggest issue is when it was first rolled out, it was not encrypted at all. It was not secured at all. Anybody with physical access to the machine could access both the database, which was plain text, and the screenshots, including other users on the computer. Simply browsing into the hard drive could view the other users' recall features. And so it definitely was an issue. That has been resolved, as again, Tom's Hardware tested and said that yes, that is improved by security. This person leaves the information about how to disable it inside the Windows settings. And then this is where it kind of gets down into some spot that I wanted to talk about here. This is why I disable all AI services. I'll probably accidentally re-enable them. Of course, Tech Rabbit says, man, this is software running all the time automatically. How's my computer taking screenshots of all my finances and everything without me knowing about it? I didn't activate it or anything. And then Global Boy says, you may have activated it in your administrator, or you may have activated it or your administrator by data privacy settings when Windows is set up. No one reads the legalese. I always choose no location tracking, no diagnostic logging, etc. We'll go ahead and stop there because what I wanted to illustrate is most likely this person, if they had a Windows 10 computer, they updated it to Windows 11. No, they have not gotten recall in this form as a GUI application installed on their system, but it is concerning that people running Windows don't even know what this is. You go into Best Buy and they want to sell you a new computer. They're going to sell you all these amazing features, but they're not going to tell you about all these back-end things. It's really up to you as the consumer to understand what your computer is doing. And that in and of itself is part of the problematic trend. But this gets us into the article I wanted to discuss, and this is from Tom's Hardware. And so a recall, they say, is screenshotting credit card numbers and social security numbers, even with the sensitive information filter enabled. So there is a sensitive filter option there. If you enable that, it's not supposed to take any what they would call sensitive data, which they define as credit card data, financial data, social security data, or medical data. That is how they are defining it. But the question is, how does it know what something is? And the reality is Tom's Hardware put it through some rigorous tests and found that indeed it was not doing a very good job. It could identify things like full checkout pages from common shopping carts, like maybe probably WooCommerce or, BigCommerce, other big shopping carts, certainly an Amazon shopping system, which generally by and large, unless you're entering a new credit card number, you don't see a lot of that information anyway, except maybe your physical address in shipping locations. It did a good job on that. What it completely failed at is filling out a PDF on Edge. This is a big deal because, as a contractor, when I'm doing things like set up the Patreon page or the locals page or, the Subscribe Star page or our Spread Shop where we can sell hats, like this hat is available over on Spread Shop there. And we have all of these different items that I do to generate revenue on the channel. Every one of those services needs a FW9 to set it up for tax reasons. Now, I've protected my social security number by having an LLC that everything runs through, but even that I have to expose the EIN number for the company, and I still have to enter personal details and things like that. And what they said is that when they went over here and were using a Edge here to fill out effectively like an FW9. This was a loan application is what they were filling out. They actually said that Recall was able to capture the real data. Now, they gave us screenshots with test data in it, but they also showed us, but he did tell us that he didn't include the screenshots of actual real data. So this one, the first one, of course, was filling out a PDF on Edge. So, of course, Edge is a software. This is a Microsoft product, so you would think that it would understand a little bit how to use Edge, but it couldn't detect that the PDF had sensitive data, even though all of those are going to ask for social security numbers and things like that. Then they did what many people do. It's bad practice, but many people do this, just using Notepad for using credit card or just login things in general. So this guy here, he says Capital One Visa, and then it has the number, has a CVC number, it has the expiration date, all the things you might need to copy and paste that into a web form in order to make a purchase online. Even though it was very clearly labeled as a Capital One Visa card, Recall still captured the number and was able to store that in the database, which means that the sensitive information is still being collected, being it credit card numbers, or they had over here usernames and passwords on that sheet there as well. And then, of course, they had the information on the contact form. He also did a basic HTML page, and the basic HTML page here had on it enter your credit card number here. So it had a pull down for a Visa, a credit card. Now, what I don't know is there was a way to code an HTML page where you can tell the browser that this is a credit card number. I don't know if he used that code explicitly, but not every developer does use that code explicitly. And so here we had a circumstance where the Recall was able to capture the Visa, the fact this is a Visa, the credit card number, the CVC, and the expiration date. So they were actually able to show that Recall is selecting a lot more data than it should. He did say that it did refuse to collect it when they went to payment pages of Pimoroni and Adafruit e-commerce stores. In both those cases, it only captured screens from before or after the credit card information was filled. So that actually did succeed the test, as on an e-commerce page. Presumably, though, this is going to be a well-known e-commerce page. If you're picking something up at some small store is otherwise perfectly secure, but Microsoft may not detect it's a store or a shopping page, and so it may very well collect data. Once again, filtering us to use all of the big corporations rather than people self-hosting a store, which makes a lot of sense. So I'm not sharing a lot of my revenue with other services. So he did come down here and mention, they sent all this stuff out to Microsoft first. Microsoft provided this information. We've updated Recall to detect sensitive information like credit card details, passwords, personal identification numbers. When detected, Recall will not save or store those snapshots. We'll continue to improve the functionality. And if you find sensitive information that should be filtered out, for your context, language, or geography, please let us know through the Facebook Hub. We've also provided opt-in security settings that will encourage you to enable that will anonymously share apps or sites you prefer to be excluded from Recall to help us improve. So people can now go in there and say that XYZ site should be excluded from this particular service. And you'd expect things like anything dealing with the medical industry. I mean, this is a huge HIPAA violation if they're collecting data from a medical situation there. Any other site, somebody can send that data back in order to say that it's not there. And so I don't know if there's been further tests with this. I did look into it today before filming the video. I only was able to find one more reference to this, which was dated, I think, the 21st or the 23rd or something of December. So a week after this original article came out, but all that was a summary of this. There was no new information in there. They did actually say that what did work is they were not able to get into the system. I think that's down here at the bottom. They were actually not able to get into the database. So here is the database file, but they were not actually able to get into the database file. They could find the file itself, but they were not able to actually access it. This is what they believe are the screenshots. Once again, they were not able to access it, although they did say a dedicated hacker could probably find a way into there. But at this time, the basic common user of the computer could access these files, but would not be able to decrypt it without the Windows Hello. Now, when you use this, it really wants you to use the biometric login, but it still will continue to work with a 4-digit PIN. They also said as a security issue with this is that people accessing it via TeamViewer can still access these files. So if you're accessing this on TeamViewer, you can, in theory, be able to access this. So if a hacker does know your PIN number and is able to get onto your system, so we could actually expect the scammers that are using TeamViewer to launch this up and say, oh, we need that PIN number. And, some foolish person would potentially give that PIN number over, which would completely compromise your system. And so that are some of the weaknesses. The other thing is it is opt-in, but they really want you to use it. So here is when you first install this computer or upgrade to this particular computer, this is the information you get. Unlock your photographic memory with Recall. If you allow Recall Preview to save snapshots, an image of your screen will be saved every few seconds. This will create a photographic memory for you of the apps, websites, documents, and images you have seen. And then there's your 3 bullet points there. And then there is a Learn More button. There is a yes, and there is a no. And so it's not, they're not using serious dark patterns here to push you to it, but it is a very big screen you do have to deal with when you first install it. So there we have it. Windows Recall is clearly back. It is ready to launch, and it is allegedly still insecure as far as the data that it is collecting. Now, we have to see another test after Microsoft made the implementations according to this, but the big challenge we have here is that this system is collecting a bunch of data, and it's possible to run this application on just on any given computer. And so who's to say that Microsoft won't start installing this in other systems? Who's to say that you're not getting a computer and then you've been sold how amazing this is with this NPU unit, and you didn't know that the computer was turning on snapshots of everything that you're doing. And in general, Microsoft is just doing a lot of things like this. My recommendation, of course, is for anybody that is able is to switch to Linux, and I still recommend Linux Mint as the best option. It works very well on the widest variety of hardware. It has a very familiar, intuitive option. We do have 3 desktop environments, although Cinnamon is generally considered the best. And you can download it and you can install this on your system. You can even install this onto a small flash drive and test it out without interfering with your current system as well. And so there are certainly things that you should do instead of sticking around with whatever Windows specifically does if you have that option to switch to something else. Linux is an excellent option. It is what I've been using around this office here for the better part of a decade now. And, honestly, I don't even know how I would do a lot of things I do these days without Linux. And so I have no driving concern to push me back into the Windows world. Those are kind of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts about what's going on with Recall in the comments down below. Once again, if you like this type of content, please subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Leave us a like and a comment down below and share the video far and wide. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.